Okay, it's preparing to live stream the meeting now.
You should be able to just copy the link straight from Zoom, by the way, in the top left corner where it says live on YouTube. You can just click on that and click copy streaming link.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're live on YouTube.
It's preparing to live stream the meeting now.
Sorry. We're live
you should be able to just copy the link straight from Zoom, by the way, in the top left corner where it says live on YouTube. You can just click on that and click copy streaming link.
Okay. We are live on YouTube. We had to use YouTube.
We're live on YouTube. Preparing to live stream the meeting now.
You guys hear feedback?
Yeah.
Somebody's got some echo. Somebody's playing the stream in the background.
Left corner where it says live on YouTube. You can just
Hold
click
on
on
a
that and
second.
click
Sorry.
copy streaming link.
Yeah, if you have YouTube up, you gotta mute it.
On YouTube.
I'm doing it now. Okay, there we go. All right, sorry about that. These production issues here. Welcome to Local 100 Fightback Coalition live stream. We had some problems with Facebook, so we had to go to YouTube. So we're going to be copying a link in the Local 100 Fightback Coalition page so that people will be able to watch it live. So I just want to go around and have people introduce themselves. Andrew, why don't you start it off?
Sure. My name is Andrew Metke. I'm a signal maintainer, currently working at 14th Street, 8th Avenue, in compressors, and it's just delightful.
Tell us how you really feel, Andrew. Don't hold back.
Oh, I will.
So how long have you been working in MOW?
I started in 2013 in MOW, April 2013, so just about 7 years. Actually, 7 years today. I started April 29th, 2013.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Oh, yeah, it feels great.
Yeah,
Baked myself a cake.
It fills you with joy, right?
Yeah.
And no doubt you thank Chauffeurello for every benefit you've gotten, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Every day. I call him, I send him a little text, tell him I love him, just to be nice.
John has a heart of gold, doesn't he? So in any case, let's go to James Brady. Why don't you introduce yourself?
James Brady, train operator in B Division, currently work on the R line out of 9-5. And I've been here for just over 7 years too. I was hired January 2013.
Okay. And the MTA has treated you with lots of love since you've been here, right?
Just bounteous love. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cuomo tells us that, that he thinks we're all heroes, and, he thinks we should run into the burning building without a water hose and without any PPE, but he loves us. Tony assures us that Daddy loves us. He really loves us. He's just filled up with joy with our presence. And also joining us is Humberto Rodriguez. Hey, Humberto, how we doing?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How's it going
Looks
tonight?
like you just got out of bed, Humberto. What's going on, man?
Long day at work, back to work. No?
Is that daddy life for you?
That pound the road, man. They got me today. They got me on the road today. So.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. We all feel your pain.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay.
So, how's it been getting back to the road?
Well, well, let's see. Like, they're starting to restore, I guess, the terminals slowly but surely, and people still be reassigned. Like, a lot of the crews are returning, but there's still a lot of disorder. Like, they still have to get their stuff together.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work that needs to be done, man. And, a lot of headache because people getting reassigned. So people, the picture started this week.
Right.
So they went through with the B Division pick, and it started, and it's just like it's crazy. Like, they're reassigning people. They restored our terminal, but then they reassign people. So people showed up to the regular job today and found out that they were reassigned. It's just a big mess today. So I was like, we're trying to adjust, and they don't accommodate us a lot of times. As we know, working down here, they accommodate us.
Yeah.
That's how it's been.
So,
Anyway.
just so people know what Humberto's talking about the reassignments is that there's a 700 supplement out for pretty much every line in the system. And we know that's, Daniel tell us later about what's going on in buses, similar stuff with people being put extra. And basically the response of our RTO VP, Eric Eddie Logel, is basically that this is an emergency and we have to help management and we have to cooperate. And there's nothing in the contract that can stop them from running a supplement, which is true. There's nothing in the contract that can stop them from running a supplement for 30 days and then changing one interval and then putting on another supplement for 30 days. Nothing can stop them except union organized power and leadership to provide consequences for their actions when they disrespect our members. And we've seen none of that. So, just so people know what's going on. What's happening is happening everywhere, but it's happening for the same reason. There is no fight on the part of our leadership to actually enforce our pick rights. So I want to go to Danny and just so he could talk about some of the experiences related to that.
I wanted to add one more thing though. Actually, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, COVID has, like I said, COVID has exposed a lot of the issues we have, like the crew office, timekeeping. So people haven't been getting paid. They can't assign people the proper job. So it's just a ripple effect through all the different departments, which I guess segues into the bus.
Well, thanks for doing that little intro there, Umberto. You got some talent at this. We're gonna go to you. But okay, Danny, you're on the spotlight, man. What's going on in buses? You're our man on the ground in buses right now. Because just so you know, just so everybody knows, Roberto Martinez Villas had a issue where his son's car needed repairs and stuff on the Guanas. So I don't know if he's going to join us late, but he does have the link, so we hope he will join us. But Danny, you have the floor. Go ahead.
In regards to buses, we're pretty much our schedule right now. We were left to extra list for us, so we had no idea what our schedules would be until the night before. There's been days that 7:30 at night, you still don't know what time you report the next morning, because being that they were so short staffed, there was no consistent. They put us all on the extra fall off list. So now we're left at our regular runs were done by seniority of favor. It really, there was people that have been there more time than me, and they cleared late night, 1 o'clock in the morning. That's unacceptable for somebody who usually works the morning times.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way why they should be clearing at midnight. And unfortunately, we're left to, some depots are doing things differently, whether it is of how many people they have or not. There's no consistency right now across buses. So some locations are doing 50-50 off. We never even got the chance to do 1 week on, 1 week off.
Yeah, don't feel bad. We didn't either.
So in regards to that, the schedule wise, it's just now that everybody's back to work, now they have extra people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do with them. Some people are getting the time off to stay home.
Right.
But most of us are just out there not knowing what our schedule will be like for the next day, which is nerve-wracking for us. We still got to go out there and deal with this pandemic, deal with these people on our buses who are still not wearing masks. They learned, Transit is making an announcement. The MTA is making an announcement over the loudspeaker saying that if not every disability is visible over to the passengers in the back, so now everybody wants to try to board towards the front. If you have a cane, they want the front door usage. That should have been only for wheelchairs. Anybody else should have been able to use the rear doors, because that's to protect us. But certain things, it's just like, I'm starting to learn that certain things we have to make our own decisions on. Forget any repercussions, any superintendent, supervisor, whoever's coming at it. I'm driving the bus. I'm going to do what I feel is safe for me.
Right. Absolutely. Well, actually, you guys have already taken the lead on that. I know that Michael Enriquez and yourself and others were very instrumental in that, taking the lead and not waiting for anybody to give you advice about what to do. And now the MTA has adopted that policy, correct?
Yeah, we've pretty much said, you know what, nobody's doing anything to protect us. We kept saying we had to find a way. We weren't giving the mask, of course, just like everybody else. So we figured, what's the best way for us? Let's distance ourselves. We started propping up the wheelchair seats. If we had caution tape, Michael Enriquez found some caution tape, started putting them on those seats. So that would avoid people sitting there near us. It would force them to go behind a certain area. So now it just created social distancing. So eventually we just kept doing it. A lot of bus operators jumped on board across all the boroughs, and we kept implementing it more and more and more. Eventually MTA said, you know what, we got to kind of give in.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
they implemented rear door boardings, and that's when the chain came into play.
Okay. And how many years do you have in buses, Danny?
I'm gonna be hit 4 years, so 3.5. I'll hit 4 in September.
Okay, so you're almost past the worst of it, right?
Almost. I keep hearing 5 years is the worst.
Listen, I heard the rumors about seniority, and we're gonna have pick rights, and we're gonna have those great jobs and all that. I ain't seen it yet. I got almost 15 years. I ain't seen it yet.
I have had my good and bad so far, but
Mhm.
aside from it, everything's been, in regards to the job itself and driving, everything's been fine. A couple hiccups here, certain things, but it mostly relies on the preparation and the miscommunication between the working force, the union, and management. There's just so much disconnect on there that there's times that you don't know what's changing. They don't tell you, they don't post it. You
Right.
go out there and then you find out from somebody else, or this change, or that change. And it's like, whoa, I haven't heard anything about that. So for me, it's always just been that miscommunication. And that's one of the things that probably bothers me the most, because I like to be prepared.
Yeah, they train us to be prepared, right? And then they don't give us the
Yeah, they
baseball
train us to
speed,
forward plan.
right? Yeah, yeah. You're plan for anything, plan for emergencies, plan to be stuck on the bus for 3 years, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get to Anthony Steiniger. Let me unmute Anthony so he can introduce himself. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing well, doing a lot better. How you doing, John? How's everybody?
Doing great. I know you had the one of the roughest experiences of our coalition members with this. And I know your wife was sick. I mean, how's everything going with the family?
Well, personally, I'm doing much better. I've returned to work. My wife, her recovery is going very, very slowly.
Wow.
She still has body aches and fatigue, and this is almost a month after testing positive. Actually, it's a month and 4 days after we got our positive results, and she's still experiencing body aches and fatigue.
Yeah. So I know that you've been back at work for a little bit now, but it's still kind of up in the air, right, as to how you're being used, or I know you were at Stillwell for a while.
Well, my first day back, I was at Stillwell, and they the W line, which I picked, has been canceled. So they've been putting me all over the place. I've been on the end on the road. I've been on the end switching. Tomorrow I'm going to be on the queue. So I'm coming in earlier than the time that I normally preferred, that I picked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to different locations. So I'm paying tolls now because I have to drive to these different locations in order to get there on time.
Yeah, that living in Staten Island thing is a problem, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I like where I live.
See, Anthony wants to maintain his status with the Staten Islanders here because you don't want to get thrown under the bus. But that was just a moment of levity here, Anthony. It's what.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I chuckled as you could see.
Okay. Cool.
But I mean, it's happening to everybody. I mean, somebody mentioned it earlier. Umberto mentioned it with this reassignment stuff, and Danny talked about it as well as being extra. It's I'm torn between like enduring, but at the same time, I know it's part of the job, but as we should be given accommodated as much as possible. I understand that this is emergency and transit is short staffed, but as always, we're the ones who bear the brunt of everything.
Yeah. Well, and the response of the union leadership should have been, well, if it's an emergency, then we need emergency measures, right? How about an emergency safety plan? Oh shit. I think those guys from Local 100 Fightback Coalition, the guy named Rosenberg, he had some ideas on that. Seth, you want to let us know about what those ideas were? I'm sorry, I'm trying to unmute you. There you go.
Oh, that was Andrew was the one who spearheaded that. So let's let him talk about that.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry about that. My bad. You see how we tried to appropriate your credit there, Andrew?
That's fine by me.
You got to keep.
Somebody else wants to be the center of attention. I am all good with that. But no, I tried to put together and with some input from the coalition, which just seemed like common sense things that could have been done and still haven't been done and still should be done. So, okay, they're not going to shut down the subway. They should. It's definitely best practice. It's what they did to successfully contain this in China. But fine, they're not willing to do that. So what can we do? Why aren't there occupancy limits in stations, on cars, on buses?
Right.
How do you operate without, you're telling people 6 feet, and in crew rooms as well. Why are we still allowing just anybody to get on a train or on a bus? Why haven't measures been taken to identify essential workers, provide them with a credential that lets them into the system, and doesn't, some kind of enforcement to keep just anybody off the trains? Why are there still buskers on the platforms and dancers on the trains? It's insane.
Yeah, definitely.
There was other stuff too, but
well, I mean, it was a common sense plan that we came up with, and thinking about it after long days at work. Like Andrew, how long you work on an average?
I try very hard to only work 8 hours. I'm fortunate. I don't work on the road right now. I work in compressors, so it's generally easy for me to only work 8 hours. When I was in the field, 10, 12, 14-hour days, 16-hour days, never uncommon, especially in Signal.
And if something jumps
in
off,
trouble response. What?
If something jumps off, it's you. Right?
There's always signal trouble. Always. And even when things are fine.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
See,
even when the trouble's resolved, they never want to let you go. It's, well, you got to monitor, you got to do this shit. It's like, all right. And there's always a GO, like it's a surprise to them. They call you 20 minutes to the end of your trip. Oh, hey, can you stay and set up this GO? We don't have anybody for it.
Yeah, but
and
you set it up 30
like 6
days.
weeks ago. Yeah, all right.
So I was trying to pass it to Seth earlier, but you intercepted, so I'm going to go back to Seth. Okay. All right. Seth, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, let me just follow up on a couple things from Andrew's plan. I thought it was, he put it out there to the coalition, and I looked at it, I said, we agreed that the system should be shut down for the health of transit workers and our lives, plus the lives and health of the riding public. But obviously Governor Cuomo sees it as symbolic for some reason to keep the system open. I mean, there are ways to get essential workers to and from work without the subway system, right? You can house them in hotels near, you can give them all cars. There are tens of thousands of rental cars available. There's no tourists at all. There are other methods that could be used, but yet Cuomo refused. And so the system stayed open. Transit workers got sick and died. The virus spread through the city, through the transit system. We all know that. So Andrew came up with this plan and sent it out to the coalition. We thought it was a reasonable attempt at a compromise if Cuomo and the MTA were going to, say we're not going to close the system and do what we need to do. And so, the things Andrew described all made sense. But another piece of it is that you can't just look at the subways, right? You have to look at the city as a whole. And so the idea of, credentialing workers so that you only can ride the system and get into the system if you are essential and you have some sort of pass, and then anyone else should not be in the system, right? And that means so part of the ways that you could lower the load, as I said, is to have essential workers staying at hotels near their workplace. That way they don't have to worry about infecting their families. That way they don't have to worry about commuting. There are plenty of hotel rooms all over the city, near hospitals, other warehouses. And then, part of that also takes care of the problem. A lot of people have been talking about the dangers with respect to the homeless population. It's not safe for the riders. It's not safe for transit workers. It's not safe for the homeless. I was just listening to WBAI, I think it was yesterday on the way home, and they had advocates who people who work closely with the homeless saying the homeless shouldn't be in the system. I think everyone agrees with that. And yet the MTA and the city and the state can't coordinate to get this done, right? I mean, again, there are many hotel rooms. You have in this emergency where so many people are at risk, you have to question the basic things that people won't go near, right? You have to say, these hotels are a resource that we can use in order to keep the city safe, and we're going to do it. We're going to put essential workers there, and we're gonna use them to house the homeless and give them the services, the food, the medicine, and whatever they need. And so, but without that, that now that crisis has come to a head, and transit workers are angry, as we have every right to be, right? But you need a solution that's outside of transit, and that tells these private industries that they don't have a right to to just do whatever they want anymore. They have to put their resources for the common good, and that's something we haven't seen.
Right. Well, also, you see with Trump, what happens when the government that's supposed to represent all people is used as basically a prop for corporate swine, like the poultry and the pork producers. Now they're planning on reopening these factories, these production centers that are the epicenter outside of New York City. The epicenter of the virus spread is poultry, pork plants, and prisons, and nursing homes. Those are the three places where the virus is spreading unchecked. And yet the policy procedures is, if you like, what you should do is, if the masks are dirty or wet, you should replace them. If you like. We don't want to force you or nothing. We don't want to tell you, that this is a major cause of a global pandemic and that you will do what we tell you to do as the CDC. No, if you like, if you feel like it. If it's not too much inconvenience, whatever you guys think is best, but, whatever, but that's the kind of social control that we get from the capitalists and from the ruling class. And, anybody who's been in the TA for a hot minute can realize that has a lot of similarities to Cuomo and company. Cuomo company today, they said they're going to test 1,000 transit workers a day. Okay, well, that sounds like a great plan, and it's progress from the nothing they've been doing so far in terms of asymptomatic transit workers being tested. But what that means is that in 42.5 days, maybe we might test everybody in our union, and we'll know whether they were infected with the virus 30 days ago. Oh yeah, that's a great plan, And then we're gonna disinfect the subways every 24 hours. But Cuomo told the MTA he doesn't care how they do it. Just let us know what the plan is. And I just want to be able to tell essential workers that it's safe. So basically what he's saying is he wants to be able to lie to essential workers and lie to their families and further expose them and get away with it. That's what he wants. So I want to find out who wants to speak. I would suggest, James, if you want to talk about how the MTA has treated you, you're off mute now, so you can tell us how they've treated you when you went through one of the toughest times in your life.
Yeah, so I think we covered a lot of the bases about the COVID stuff. I can go on and on about the failures there. Just put everybody in danger. And like you said, with Cuomo, this whole thing is now reactive, which is what they love to do. It's no proaction, always reaction, right? But just to, I guess, dive into my own personal, their attack on me was after I had a 12-9 on the R line in Queens. And I guess in a good way, the person who got hit by the train, he lived. I got at the last minute, I guess he decided he wanted to live. So he tried to move to the off side of the cab, and he came in contact with the train. And then I don't know what happened after that. But apparently, according to police, he lived. They got him on the mezzanine or whatever. And so that was basically what happened in a nutshell. So I did the whole thing, went downtown, filled all the paperwork. I went to the rubber room, which is now closed, thank God, but that place was a mess. So I did that for 2 weeks, and then it all started when I first started getting in touch with my caseworker, and he was basically absent every single time I tried to call. The union tried to help me out some. I will say in that case they were pretty helpful, but then I immediately realized that I needed a lawyer, so I had to go that route. And I got a letter in the mail saying that they were not going to pay me workers' comp. They basically denied me the workers' comp, even though, I had all the paperwork. I had I went to the doctor the next day. He got me to the psychologist, and she put me out. This happened in September. This went on through the holidays, and I had an initial hearing, which I thought in November, right before Thanksgiving, when I was supposed to, what I thought was going to be a hearing to determine whether I was going to get workers' comp or not, and it was only to establish the case. So once they'd established that there was a case to be made, they now had to reschedule an actual trial. So I had to wait another almost 60 days at this point. So that went on till the end of January, and I mean, I didn't even know what was going to happen because I'm basically rolling the dice on not getting paid for 4 months.
Wow.
And I didn't know if they were going to get back pay. I don't even know what happened. And so in December, I actually went to see the IME, and he put me from 100% disability to 25% like that. I mean, that guy saw me for all of 5 minutes. So he asked me about 3 questions, which were like, how's your sleep? Have you been gaining or losing weight? And then he asked me one other very insignificant question. I answered it. I quickly went through my story. 25%. I was gone. I was in there for 5 minutes, which I honestly know he's a doctor, but I don't know any doctor who could assess your mental well-being in 5 minutes with like a sleep check and a weight check. It's just ridiculous. So he dropped me down to 25%, which didn't matter at the time because I wasn't even getting paid. So anyway, come up to my trial date in January, and luckily I won that case. The judge sided with me, which was good. So they had to back pay me at 100% up until the IME's visit in December. Everything after that was 25%, and the rest was made up for in differential. But even I was telling John on the phone actually, but the lawyer was just so ridiculous. He attacked me on everything. They brought in the superintendent, the TSS who responded. They were asking me how fast I was going. What was the distance? Where was the person? They asked me if I had ever been trained in school car to deal with a 12-9, and to deal with the psychological effects of what that would be. And I just laughed, and I looked at him and I was like, we don't get trained for that. I was like, I don't understand where you're even coming from with this, or like, I don't even know if he was trying to like defame me or berate me or whatever it was. But anyway, I ended up winning, and from that point on, took another basically like 6 months at that point. But I'd already gone through 4 months of time that honestly was like one of the worst times of my life. I'm dealing with the psychological effects of that. I'd have no income. I'm approaching, holiday time.
Yeah.
I got a little girl. It's just like I couldn't think about anything except what this was. And every day I'm on the phone with, some union rep trying to find this thing, calling my insurance company, calling my lawyer, going to the doctor, going to the site, going to the shrink. It was insane. It was so insane. And to deal with a situation like that, that might be one of the worst things I deal with in my entire life. And have your employer attack you is one of the worst feelings I've ever had. Like, I just don't understand how you could put one of your employees at that. And not to mention that I'm a train operator, and I essentially saved this guy's life because I was able to break in time that he had enough sense to even probably be like, I'm going to get out of the way. This train's too slow, or whatever it was that's happening. And it's just like, I know I'm not asking to be treated any special way or have some like New York Daily News thing. What I'm saying is, if I need time to heal from that, you should at least be willing to give it to me, just because you're my employer and I'm going through this thing, and now you're going to attack me. Like, how am I supposed to even come back to work for you? Right. And now, lo and behold, on this situation, I feel almost the same thing again. You go to work, you're not given a mask, you're told no, you don't know where you're working, what time you're going to clear, what you're going to do, what you're bringing home to your family. And again, you're just being attacked. Go to work, do your job, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing over and over again. And it's just bad situations all around, and things I'd rather forget. But I think they're good to talk about and bring to this discussion. So thank you.
Absolutely, James. And just so you know, like, I wish I didn't have to say this, but I've been where you're at. Like, I've been 5 months without pay. I haven't, thank God I haven't had to deal with a 12-9. I don't wish that on anybody. But I've had like serious nerve damage and spinal injuries. And the TA did exactly what they did to you, they did to me. So, I can definitely relate. And I'm just now getting back to whole months later. And we know what that's like. And I'm sure many people watching this know what that's like. And I thank you so much for sharing your experiences, because like, there's no voice that can be heard about our issues but us, but the people who go through it every day. I won't call on Seth. I know he has his hand raised. That was so polite of you, Seth.
Yeah, first time for everything.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Brady for sharing his story. You know, he and I go way back on the G line, back from the old days when he was a new kid on the block. So it's good to see him. Good to see you, James.
Before you had gray hair, Seth?
No, my gray hairs go way even further back. But you know, just we may have some watchers who are not in transit, and a 12-9 is a person under the train or a person who makes, you know, person hit by a train. And it's for a train operator, it's one of the things that we dread the most, and it happens unfortunately more than we would like. So Brady, I just want to say I'm real sorry, both about the 12-9 and about the way that you got treated. You know, it's one of the worst things that can happen to us. And then to get put through the ringer like that by the transit authority, no one deserves that. So I'm really sorry to hear that you went through that.
Oh, thank you.
But you know, it's, you know, I think he makes a good point that, you know, and I've tried to make that point as well, to let people from the outside know that when we look at the transit authority's response to COVID-19, it's not a surprise, because transit workers have known for our whole careers that the TA doesn't value us as human beings or value our lives whatsoever. We're just numbers to them, and we just make their service run. And if we get hurt or we die or they torture us or they put us through the ringer or whatever, that's just the way they do it, right? And so, you know, Brady's unfortunately a horrible example of that. I had a question. I was wondering, like, is there anything, you know, well, first let me just say I had a lot of classmates and a lot of friends who have had 12-9s, and I've seen the toll that it takes on people. People can't sleep, right? It feel like they're in a daze. That's the thing. You're operating a train and someone gets really hit by a train that you're operating, and people have nightmares about it. And so people need time. It's post-traumatic stress is right. And that's what Brady was experiencing. And I've seen people I've seen them had a 12-9, and then the next time I saw them, they were completely different people. They looked like they were sleepwalking through life. And so, you know, people have to understand that train operators need time to heal from that. Some people can't get back on a train and operate for quite a while. And for the transit authority to take a train operator, someone who did a good job there and did the best that they could and actually help save the person, and then, you know, just torture them like that is just reprehensible.
Umberto has his hand raised, so I'm gonna call him Umberto Rodriguez. I corrected your name, Umberto, so everybody knows your full name. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, but back to James Brady's point, like he's right about the they don't train us to deal with this. This is stuff that they need to allocate to like professionals to give us mental health diagnoses and counseling, pretty much. Like just like 12-9s, all we get is 3 days. So we get 3 days if it's a fatality, mind you. Anything else you have to apply for workers' comp and go through the ringer or whatever the process is. I've never had a 12-9, thankfully. I know a lot of people that have it. And like Seth was saying, it's an ordeal. And then the way the transit treats you doesn't make it better. It just compacts it compounds the stress. And then, like I said, with COVID now, we're seeing our fellow members die in front of us. You know what I'm saying? Like people that we spend time with die, and they don't have any kind of plan to give us mental health counseling or anything. We're not going to get any time off. We come right back to work, and they put you back on the road. I was at work today. They reassigned me. They had me jumping around, jumping through hoops, and I did a trip. You know what I'm saying? Like same old nonsense, pound the road. They're not providing any counseling for people. You know, there's going to be a lot of grief, a lot of duress. You know what I'm saying? But like Seth was saying, you know, they treat us like that when we have 12-9s. What makes you think they're going to treat us any better when we're dealing with this pandemic? You know, so it's crazy that, you know, stuff we have to deal with now, and not everybody, not just train operators, but all titles, and you know, bus operators. I think we talk about the transit system being the the vector for this disease. But the buses have the highest rate of fatality. Like they're dealing with a serious death, and no one's really talked about the bus drivers as much as we talk about the trains and stuff. And that's something we need to really as well. Like I don't even know if the chains and that stuff worked. I don't know how effective it was. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. At what point did they implemented this versus the death toll of the bus drivers? But it's amazing. It's crazy that this happened, and I feel for my bus drivers. Like it's unfair to them. And like you said, if you ride the train, you're on a train for X amount of time. When you're going, you're going to where you're going. When you're on the bus, you actually spend more time on the bus because it's actually a longer ride. So unless you're going obviously to the train station, just to transfer for a train, most bus rides are longer than the train ride for the average person. But anyway, I'm gonna pass it off. I don't know if wants to speak on
I'm gonna call on Denny next.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna call on Danny
Okay.
next. But before I do, I just wanted to talk about the role that Danny has played in informing members of the deaths of his coworkers. That is so far above and beyond anything the union leadership has done. It's just shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And also, before we get too far into this, I wanted to mention the passing of Ben Schaefer, the conductor, vice chair, a longtime unionist, one of the sweetest men you could ever meet. I know him real well for like almost 15 years now. And his passing and the passing of all of the people who have passed is just so unnecessary. And it makes me so angry and it makes me so sad. And, I'm going to pass it to Danny so he can talk about some of the work he's been doing, because I think it's really important work. It may seem like a small thing to mark the passing of our coworkers, but it's one of the things that makes us human. It's one of the things that gives us our humanity in this crisis. I'm going to let Danny speak on that. Go ahead, Dan.
Before I go to that one, I just want to touch base on for when you start with transit, they pretty much put so much stress on you in your first year that stress alone is already takes a toll on your mental, on your brain. Sure. You already start feeling stressed. You never know your schedules, and anything that I've seen so far has been that you're always guilty for any incident that happens. It doesn't matter if it was your fault or not. The minute the first supervisor gets on that scene, you're guilty unless you prove them otherwise.
Right.
Somebody once told me that you can have 23 years of a perfect record on your file, but that one day you have something go wrong, transit does not care about those 23 years.
Right.
They're only going to care about that.
Well, in RTO, we have a saying for that. It's called, you're only as good as your last move. So we can definitely relate to that.
In regards to the list, now it started off when a couple of people started passing away. The first few people, one of the third or fourth person that passed away was actually one of the operators of the depot that I work out of Manhattanville. So it kind of hit a little close to home. I had just spoken to this individual the week before. So I started just keeping track of all the names. And as I kept going, finding out every day more people passing, I just kept adding the names and adding them just to keep a record, because again, it goes to show there's so many groups, so many other different divisions and department within MTA and transit that not everybody knows everything that happens in other divisions. So I'm fortunate enough that I like to stay informed and I keep track of a lot of things that happen in RTO stations, MOW. So I was able to notice how many people were passing away from every department. As I did that, I pretty much created a list and shared it with our transit brothers and sisters, and people were finding out about people that passed away, without them even knowing that somebody that they knew had just lost their life due to this COVID-19 virus. It pretty much took the list that I started creating, kind of went higher than the numbers that the MTA was putting out.
Yeah.
So it went to show that the MTA wasn't reporting all the deaths that were currently happening. They were trying to keep the numbers low.
Right.
And it goes the same with the union. They weren't really, if you look right now at the TWU Fallen Heroes section and compare that to the MTA one, the MTA has a lot more names than the TWU website right now. But again, we have so many different locals that every local has created their own. So it's been hard to track everything. I've been fortunate that I have somebody from stations and somebody from RTO who came on board, and we're all working on the list together.
Yeah.
So we all have access to one file, and anytime one of us finds out, we put it on. As of right now, within tonight, there's a total of 104 lost brothers and sisters that are currently active. I just put out the list a day and a half ago, and it was up to 100. Within 24 hours, we lost another 4 active personnel.
It's amazing. Also, Danny, you can feel free to mention the names of the representatives that are helping you in one of the stations and the one in RTO.
Yeah,
I know
so we got
Crystal Young is one of them, right?
Crystal Young is one, and the other one is Jalime Medina. So they've been very helpful. Even people that once we release the list and we put it out, there's been a lot of family members, there's been a lot of supervisors and dispatchers that have reached out, superintendents, to make sure that they provided as much information as they could. Like
Right.
I've been very fortunate because I've met a lot of people along this journey, and it's so hard because every day that I wake up and I open up my phone, is like, how many other names am I going to have to add today? Yeah. You know, there was a date last week, my daughter's birthday. So I put the phone down. I said, I'm not going to put any more lists. I went 3 days, 4 days without a list. By the time I turned around, I had added over 20 names.
Wow.
You know, and then we actually go and look for the information, make sure that it's accurate. Because I'm not going to put a name on there unless I can verify that somebody that knew that person can say, yeah, this person passed away. Whether it was due to COVID or not, we've been able to verify most of the deaths that are on the list.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, some we've been told that are non-COVID. But to me, with everything that's going on, if you had an underlying sickness and you passed away right now, I say it was COVID related.
Yeah.
There's no way to know unless you physically, like the cops, NYPD say, the cops say, the only way to know if you didn't pass away due to COVID right now is if you actually got a gunshot wound.
Right.
You know, because, or some other dramatic thing. If you were sick and you just passed away of a heart attack, issues breathing, it could all be related to it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you actually also have Garrett Goebel on the list. He's not part of the COVID-19, but he was directly killed in circumstances that were created by the crisis. Right?
yeah, pretty much the list has been compiled of active members, retirees, you know, non-MTA workers who are Liberty lines, you know,
Yeah.
big bus, school buses, because they all still fall under the umbrella of TWU.
Okay.
So to me, I always considered, even as a retiree, you're still part of the family.
Absolutely.
So a lot of members don't a lot of members ask me, well, why are you including? Guys, they're still part of us. A lot of the people worked with them. I personally knew one person that was on there. You know, to me, that was a loss. So Garrett unfortunately lost his life due to the fire. He's still on that time frame where we don't know what caused that person to do that to the train.
Right.
You know, so it could have been related, but the thing is to honor those that we've lost.
Absolutely.
Keep a track of everybody who we've lost during this time frame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's part of what makes us a union is to honor the dead, but also fight like hell for the living. And that's part of the problem, is that we have done some of that. The union has done some of honoring the dead, but not a whole lot of fighting for the living and fighting for there to be less dead. Seth is saying 0. So Seth had his hand up, so I'm going to call on him since he's going to act out anyway.
Yeah. The first thing I wanted to say, I was glad that we brought up Ben Schaefer. You know, a lot of us knew Ben. He was he an executive board member for a while?
No, he ran for executive board and he tied for executive board. He didn't actually win the position.
Okay.
His first elected office was vice chair, B division.
Vice chair, right? Yeah, but I remember, you know, it's a horrible loss. I knew Ben pretty well. He was a gentle, soft-spoken guy. We didn't always agree on everything, but I always knew that, that he'd get a smile, he'd smile when he saw me, and that we'd sit and talk. Obviously, I'm Jewish, and so he saw, always an opportunity for conversation there. I remember I think the last major conversation I had with him was he was like, he wanted to talk to me, and he had this big smile on his face. He was so proud because I think the MTA had denied him the day off for one of the Jewish holidays, and he fought them, and then he took it to the press, and they backed down immediately. And he wanted to share that with me because he knew that I like to fight the MTA, and so he really wanted to share that. And he had this big smile on his face and was so proud to share that. And that's the last a good memory I have of him. It's just a really sad loss. So yeah, we all knew that he was sick, and I didn't hear anything for a while, and I had hoped that he improved, and it's just, it's frightening to think about and so sad. The other thing I wanted to say was, Danny brought up, and it connects up to, stuff that Brady was talking about as well, just how the MTA treats us, and how the two things we know about the MTA is that they're always going to blame us, or three things. They're always going to blame us. They don't care about us, even our lives, right? There's one of, and they're always reactive. Never get ahead of the game. I think those are three important things. And with respect to blaming us, the thing that I think really just pushed it up a notch for me was with, I think back then when the number of deaths got so high that the news coverage started to come out, that Patrick Foy, our chairman, had the gall to come out and not accept responsibility for it and try to hide behind the CDC. How pathetic was that? We know with us, the tiniest little thing goes wrong, and it's all your fault. It's all your fault. And here you got dozens of your workers dead. You didn't do the basic stuff for the safety. And what do? You don't take any responsibility whatsoever. And I was so pissed off about that one night that I put a post up on RTO information. It just encapsulated that. It's it was just a little thing. It was I didn't hit that signal. I was just following CDC guidelines. It's right. Because they always blame us, right? And here you got blood on your hands and you just try and shunt it off. But we never got that luxury. And I thought that was just one of many jabs I've made at him recently. And I think we have to, all remember that he and Cuomo and Feinberg had blood on their hands with respect to this. We all know from day one that they did not, whatever they say in the papers, and they can get news stories changed or whatever, get their quotes in. We all know from day one, they didn't even do the basics to keep us safe, right? And that's why we got infected and died in such numbers.
Yeah. Anthony has his hand raised, so I'm going to call on him. And hold on.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you're unmuted. Hold on. Are you unmuted? There we go. Good.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I just wanted to say a couple of things. I got to go because I got to get up early in the morning. But I'm glad that Andrew and Danny are on this live stream this time. Being that they're from other departments, and we always seem to be RTO heavy with these live streams. And the way transit is set up, it's almost like we're working for different companies, because I've been here 30 years and I know little to nothing about what goes on in signals or buses. And I'm sure it's the same way in those departments. They know little to nothing as to what goes on in our department. And that's a way for them to divide us and to keep us divided. And I feel like now in a crisis, I always felt this way. In the middle of this crisis, we all need to come together so that we can confront the TA as a united front and to ensure our safety. And with regards to that and what Seth was saying, and the way the TA treated us and the way I feel. Now, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the outcome is this, is that we're on our way to herd immunity in the MTA, simply because of the number of people who have been infected and who may have antibodies now. That's what I feel why they're testing for antibodies, is because They want to know how many people have immunity and can come back to work. But there's one a factor that they're really not accounting for, is that this virus is so new that it's really not well known whether or not someone who's been infected can be reinfected.
Right.
And that won't be known until you have people who have tested positive for the antibodies, who have the antibodies in their system, and they've been in an environment where they can get reinfected, and then they either subsequently get infected again or do not get infected over a period of time. So with us not having PPE for 2 months, a month and a half, or however long that this virus was known to be in New York, it's almost as if we were just left to, like we were lab rats. Whoever gets it. Whoever doesn't, or whoever's asymptomatic, whoever gets it and recovers, it's like, whatever. We'll look at the numbers later on. Mm-hmm. It's so infuriating every time I go on my social media. Every time I go on, and there's somebody that's passed away, and a few times, like today, I look and there's somebody that I knew very well that was on that list. That it hasn't been confirmed, but so I'm not going to mention the person's name, but I've seen people that I've worked with before, conductors who have been my partners who passed away, people who I just plain liked who are on there getting sick, people who I don't know, but they're transit workers, and I see that they've had families. And transit is really not, they're not doing anything for us. I mean, it's just now that we've gotten the bare minimum of PPE. And the governor's talking about the trains are going to be sanitized every day. He wants to make sure the trains are sanitized on a daily basis. But our cabs need to be sanitized on a daily basis. Not just on a daily basis, but after every single run. We have multiple people who use our cabs. All it would take to contaminate that cab is for one person, whether he's asymptomatic or not, to come in there. It's allergy season. He or she sneezes like they do every single April and spreads the virus all over, spreads droplets all over that cab. And you walk in either as a person doing the relay or a person taking that train an hour later, because it lives 5 hours on these surfaces at the bare minimum on steel and plastic, which is what our cabs are made out of. All it takes is for you to go in there and inadvertently touch a surface and touch your face. So, we're not being protected as well as we can be protected. But I just want to wrap up by saying we need to have more people from more departments getting together and forming groups, joining our live stream, and we need to confront the MTA as a united front to get protected. It's a matter of life and death at this point right now. But I want to wish everybody a good night, and I'll look in the comments in the morning and try and answer whatever I can.
Okay.
And
Tony, before you go though, can you hang out for like 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
All right. The reason why I asked you that is because, people are talking about how the MTA does business, like how they basically think our lives are expendable and they're going to do whatever they want to do and they're going to infect us and they don't care. But I just want to talk about why they think that way and why they feel no threat to change the way they do business. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Tony Utano sent out a video yesterday. In fact, there were two of them. One video that was a love letter to Governor Cuomo, where they talked about Cuomo basically talking about how much he loves transit workers and how much we're like first responders and how much we knew that we were going to be infected, but we came to work anyway. So that was the first video. The second video was Tony Utano talking about how things are going to change. I'm going to play the audio, and then I want to talk about what's missing from his intervention. Also, this is posted on the Local 100 Fightback page, so people can take a look at it later. But let me just play Tony Utano for a second. Let me just go back. I'm trying to do it on my tablet. Sorry, here we go. YouTube. Isn't technology wonderful?
Yeah. You gotta turn it up, John.
Yeah, I did. It's just it starts kind of low. It says Tony Kitano, president of Local 100.
Workers' Memorial Day has always held a special significance for transit workers at DWU Local 100. It is this day each year, April 28th, that we stop to reflect on many transit workers who have been killed on the job over the years. The number of transit workers lost to this job has always been too high. But today, Workers' Memorial Day holds new meaning in the light of terrible loss of life we have suffered among our brothers and sisters due to the coronavirus plague. To date, we have lost 61 brothers and sisters across New York City Transit. We have lost another 6 of our brothers and sisters from our school bus and private operation division. These numbers are staggering. The amount of grief that they have caused throughout this union to affected families is truly immeasurable. These losses will stay with us for years to come. The losses will stay with their families forever. The union has worked tirelessly to find new ways to provide a safer workplace during this pandemic, including the distribution of masks, gloves, and sanitizer to the frontline workers, the suspension of Kronos finger scanning attendance system, disinfecting stations and rolling stock every 72 hours, rear door boarding of buses with access to the front of buses blocked by police tape and chains, priority COVID-19 testing at Northwell Medical Urgent Care Centers for transit workers, suspension of the vast majority of cash transactions at subway stations, the distribution of face shields for conductors, relaxed sick rules, the postponement of co-payment increases for prescription drugs and emergency room visits until next year. Medical teams are taking temperatures of workers at an increasing number of reporting locations. Subway and bus maintenance teams are working 1 week on and 1 week off rotations. Also, reporting times, reporting locations are being staggered to promote social distancing. Workers in the roles with high customer interaction like wayfinders and platform controllers have been reassigned to other service roles away from public contact. We have also negotiated a $500,000 death benefit and 3 years of continuing medical coverage for the families of our lost brothers and sisters. This will never replace their loved ones, but it will give the family real assurance that they will have the financial resources to survive and recover. Transit workers, however, remain concerned. We are on the highest alert at all times. We recognize the important role we play in bringing the soldiers in this war to the front lines. We accept that responsibility with determination and pride. We understand that the trains and buses must continue to run. However, when this ordeal is finally over, we demand thorough review of all MTA safety protocols, and we will demand full union involvement in developing a rapid response safety plan for future emergencies. We also want a full review of personal protective equipment that workers must be issued at all times, not just during medical emergency. So today, Workers' Memorial Day 2020, I pledge to...
All right, that's enough. That's quite enough of Wimbag Utano.
Okay.
Now, I just want to unmute everybody, and so that we can, meaningfully communicate what's missing here. Quick question: anybody notice that he only wanted to talk about how we're going to do something after we get through the crisis, but then he talks about rapid response teams. You guys seen a rapid response team in the field?
No.
I brought up the idea of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
What he failed to mention there, and he never talked about our bosses. He never talked about our bosses. And this is the guy who I remember a few years back when a track worker tragically met his life ended on the job, due to negligence on Transit's part. He mentioned the man's weight. And I was watching the news conference that morning, and Cuomo got on, and Cuomo was more sympathetic to the man's family than our union boss. But that's who Tony Utano is. But this is a life and death crisis. People are dying. He mentioned every single thing except for either we work safe or we don't work at all. And when he made that, it was 60 people who had lost their lives. And he talks about workers being staggered so that they can practice social distancing. That's impossible in RTO. Impossible in RTO. And it's not happening now in RTO. They're about to reopen the end line on Monday at Coney Island Stillwell. They're going to reopen 1 and 2 track at Stillwell Avenue. Now, it was scheduled to reopen because the work is being completed, but we're in the middle of this crisis. If you go to Stillwell now, there isn't enough room in the crew rooms for people to safely social distance now. So they have an office train on 1 track in the end pockets, which is not being used, in order for crews to social distance. So when they reopen Stillwell Avenue on Monday for the end lines to come in, those 2 tracks to be occupied with trains that are in service, you're going to have an additional amount of crews from the end line who will need some place to take breaks. And you're going to lose that pocket where you had the office train. So this is something that is not being addressed, but it's going to happen. And in other terminals, it's still not possible to safely social distance in a lot of terminals. There needs to either be buses provided on the street level for people to social distance so they can have sufficient breaks. But that's getting away from what you were talking about just a little bit. Yeah. But it's also related to how our union boss works. It's never. I was in the military. I was in the military for 3 years, and I looked at the guy, Captain Crozier, and what he did for his sailors on board his ship. And he said, he went and said, my people, the people who I'm charged with protecting, I need help in protecting them. We need to do something. His plea was urgent. There wasn't an urgent plea when people were dying from our union. There wasn't an urgent call to action. See, if anything that this exposes is that the system runs with us. They need us to run the system. See, hundreds of workers, thousands of us were out either because we were sick or because we had been exposed and we were told to quarantine. Transit was forced. They were forced. Believe me, they didn't want to, but they were forced to reduce service. Now, if we had leadership to call upon us to say, hey, look, it's not safe. Don't go in there. It's not safe until you have what you need to make it safe. Until we make it safe, don't go in there. Maybe some of us would still, a lot of us
would still be alive.
Would still be alive, and a lot of us wouldn't have had to go through what some of us have gone through, getting this sickness and infecting our loved ones with it.
Anthony, I don't think anybody
Sorry about
here
so
knows
long-winded, but
No, don't worry about it, Anthony.
But Anthony, I'm actually I tested positive as well, and I got everybody at home. I got my wife, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law all sick with COVID, and I picked it up at work. So luckily enough, everybody's doing well. But I know exactly what you're going through right now at home, and especially with the wife, the missus. My wife is still not fully recuperated. For me, it was different. I actually got over the symptoms pretty quick. Within a week, I was feeling better. For her, a month later, and she still has fatigue and stuff, headaches and stuff like that. So we could have been very well protected from the beginning if they would have gave it to us. When I look at this video, the only thing that comes to mind is this is a video that didn't call for how we didn't get the protection at first. It looks like one of those videos that you watch when you, in a couple of years from now, they're going to use this video to show it in a history class of saying how well, transit dealt with this situation. Well, we know, the ones that were around know that that wasn't the true case.
Right. James, yeah, I see your hand up there. Go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback off of what Danny said. Like, to me, it starts off all, grim and this is what's happening, exposure, and then immediately like that it turns into union propaganda. This is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me, vote for me next time you get elected. We've helped you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody on this screen will know that that is all BS, right? Like these are all things that happen, sure, but they happened way too late and they were ineffective and inefficient at best. Like the staggering of stuff to do social distancing, I could, like Anthony said, it's really hard to do that in RTO. Like I work on the R line, 95th Street is basically a closet. And if they have all these people there, there's no way you could social distance. And I've voiced that to dispatchers and they don't know what to do. And they don't really care because they don't really have to do anything because nothing's happening. I've done that at Continental. Continental has 2 lines that end and people stay in that crew room. Granted, it's a bigger crew room. I've walked in there on any given night that I work and, you'll have 20, I've counted one time, 25 people. I mean, and you got 4 people at, one of those picnic tables. You got all 4 people, all 4 tables, people standing up. Some people got masks, some people don't. It's insane. And then for like me, I'll stand out on the mezzanine, but because we don't have schedules, I'll be standing there for 3.5 hours listening to my radio. It's like by the time I get to sit down, I feel like I got to crack my back or something. It's crazy. You get 1 mask per week. They break all the time. And that only happened a month and a half into it. So like to count that as we got a union win, it's like ridiculous. It's like, why you took 60 people to die to get a union win? Thanks, bro. Like this should have been happening months before. Like when you had these things, that's what I mean. Like the pro action thing is so important in these situations. And they waited and waited and waited. And now they're reacting to massive amounts of people, not just being hurt or sick, but dying. They reacted when people were dying. And then you make a video about, we did this, this, and this. That shouldn't even be there. It shouldn't even be in the video. Like, why even say that stuff? It should be about these people died. These are the next steps. We're not going to let this happen anymore. These are the things we're going to do. I feel like it's just ridiculous to bring up things we did too late that are going to be ineffective anyway. Like somebody said at the time in the video, 64 people, he said, passed away. Now it's up to 100. So the video is basically worthless. Like all the things he said we're doing, there's still people getting sick. People are still dying. So I don't know. To me, I'm sorry, that video just infuriated me in so many ways. It just opened up the last 2 months of just nobody helping anybody out there. And like people that are doing it on their own. We've bypassed union. We're just starting to do stuff on our own because we need to stay safe, to survive. We're surviving, which is insane to me. But I don't know. I'm done. Rant over.
Actually, James, don't apologize at all. Secondly, I knew what I was doing when I lit that dynamite stick. I knew exactly what was happening. So don't feel bad. That's exactly the response that we wanted because we want members to never ever forget. And aside from which, when you were saying about the video being out of date, no, 64 is still their number. It's still their number. They still have not done the work that Danny's been doing on his own. Not to mention the fact they're taking credit for. We did. Danny did. Andrew did. Seth did. People, who we don't even have the names of. The pressure that they did, they are taking credit for. So not only are they standing on the bodies, they're standing on the backs of members who are actually leading the struggle that they should have got up off their ass and led. I see Umberto's got his hand up, so I'm going to call on Umberto next.
Actually, John, can you let Anthony wants to speak, and he's got to go to bed, so let's let him.
I did. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know that he was going to speak in. Okay, is it okay, Umberto?
Keep it short, man. Yeah, keep it short, Anthony.
Hold on, Anthony. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
It's just one quick thing. I wanted to clarify what a office train meant for those who were in other departments and don't know what that means. It's a train that's put into the station on an unused track so that Cruz can use it for purposes of taking a break. And then during this crisis, we need those wherever they can be placed for purposes of social distancing. But one thing, you know, I want to mention about our union's response, and there was a few members who rightfully so were upset that we weren't given respect at some of these big box stores the same way other frontline workers were given courtesy to go to the front of the line. Being that, you know, we have long schedules, and now that there's lines in front of these places, you know, you should give priority for the people who are actually essential to the running of the city. And it's like, none of these guys at these stores probably wouldn't be able to get to their jobs without transit. And rightfully so, members made complaints on Facebook about this. You know, that we weren't given the respect that we are due. Now, in the middle of a crisis, a union boss should be concerned with things that save our lives, not conveniences. Mm-hmm. And he chose to put out a call to rally members to protest. The protest was called off because Costco did extend us that courtesy, thanks to Pat Ford, not our union. But he called on members, he rallied members to protest at a big box store to get in the front of the line when there's 20 million people who are unemployed. He wanted to have us in a parking lot at a big box store with signs saying we need to be in the front of the line when workers would be on that line. There possibly could have been workers on that line who may have just lost their job or who are spending their unemployment checks. And at the same time, our members are still dying. Yet he's not willing to protest against the folks who are responsible for our members dying in the first place. There's been not one call by any of our union officials to actually go to a terminal where someone like James can't get a mask. That's what you should be protesting. Going to these terminals and saying, okay, if there's no PPE here, safety dispute resolution forms, every single person here, and nothing moves until our members are safe. Our cabs are still not being cleaned. This is something that needs to be prioritized. Take your energy to where it can save our lives.
Right.
That's the only, but it shows the way this guy thinks. It's like he'll take an easy battle for PR purposes, but he won't take the hard battles against those who are putting us out there in unsafe conditions.
Right. Okay.
But that's all I wanted to say.
Anthony, not to throw shade, but you did lie to Umberto. I'm just saying. you said you were going to be short. I'm sorry.
I timed myself. I was looking at the clock. It was 2.5 minutes.
All right. Okay. All right.
That was short for Anthony.
All right.
But you understand what I'm saying.
I know.
Right?
We feel you. We're here. We understand you. But Umberto is dying over here. So, what's up, Umberto?
I gotta roast on too. But no, I mean, I guess you guys hit a lot of important points. Like, it's a lot of retread and stuff that I guess we're already on the way before he negotiated these things, quote unquote. Like you said, Danny was pushing for the partitions or the distancing, and even the 500K benefit. Like, it's not like he negotiated this right now. Like, it was already in the contract. It had already passed. It wasn't anything that he. And I think Foy, to save face, didn't object to our co-workers who died of COVID from denying them, because on a regular day, TA would fucking deny. Ooh, pardon my French. TA would deny people. You know what I'm saying? No, you know that. We know how they work.
It's an adult channel, Umberto. It's okay.
Yeah. No, but I feel you. But but on a regular day, TA would deny folks. So it's a lot of things that I don't. The 72 hours wasn't sufficient, and we all agree that 72 hours is not enough. And he's praising that. And it's like, even Cuomo right today is saying every day need to be clean. So it's like 72 hours is not sufficient. It's dangerous. It's deadly. So none of that stuff was impressive. I don't know if anybody's impressed by that or the terrible music. or his horrible. I don't know. Like I don't know if Donahue's writing this stuff, but I don't know. But it's terrible. It's not a good look. And like you said, he's taking a lot of the ideas that he didn't do, and he's passing them off as his, which is disingenuous. But yeah, you guys cover a lot of the stuff, so I mean, there's not much I can really say. But I'm gonna sign off as well.
No, I
I do some
understand.
stuff around the house.
Well, Umberto,
But
Umberto, just so you know, this is what you get when you pull the two drunks out of the bar, Pete Donahue and James Gannon, and they sober up a little bit. This is the best they can do. So I know Seth has his hand up, but Andrew had said he wanted to talk about the sick time rule, so I'm gonna get to him. Good.
Sure. I mean, they relaxed 6-time rules on a temporary basis. That agreement had already expired and was not extended by the time this video came out. And really just a lot of the things he mentioned, I didn't feel like, okay, we're going to set up rapid response safety teams after the crisis has passed. Back in November or October, when the contract was being negotiated, I brought up at a Signals Union meeting creating rapid response safety teams and line committees, and I was told that's unnecessary. There's a phone number, there's a union TA hotline, and the officers basically tabled my motion. They said it was trying to create a redundant structure, and that they weren't going to go forward with it, and I didn't have enough support at the meeting to pursue it. So it's just very frustrating to me to have a union bureaucracy that shut this idea down. Then a crisis happens and they say, oh shit, maybe we should think about doing this thing. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Andrew, thank you. Danny, I wanted you to make that point that you made in the comments.
Yeah. Good thing that Anthony brought up was that on the Costco situation, on the letter that we all got from the union, it stated that Utano thanked Pat Foyer for his assistance with helping us get the front of the line Costco win that he called. Honestly, there should be, for something like that, there should be no reason why, one, during this pandemic, that unions should be focusing on that. But two, that the union would need any assistance to get a big chain company to just give us essential workers the right to walk in ahead of time. Like everybody stated, those individuals will not get to work unless it was because of us.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it was just a sign of weakness.
Absolutely.
Like, why are you thanking the Pat Foy for something that you should have accomplished on your own?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of the problem is that they spend half their time making the boss look good and being the boss's public relations rep and donating our union dues to get scumbag traitors like Andrew Cuomo, who were responsible for literally over 100 of our members dying, reelected. That's what they spend their time doing all the time. Seth, I know you got your hands up. I just had to get that out, man. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting discussion here about the union response. And I think, if you look on the Facebook pages, members are both enraged about the way the transit authority has blood on their hands and let us die and get sick, but also enraged about the union response. Right. We have to remember that. I mean, for me, it just struck me because I heard early on about the Detroit Bus Drivers Union, who, when faced with the fact that members didn't have the basic safety stuff, the PPE and other safety conditions, they took their members out on strike, and said no PPE, no safe conditions, no work. Now we have the Taylor law, but still the union we have the safety dispute resolution form as well. But how many safety dispute resolution forms has the union filled out? How many times while people were dying did they go out to locations and shut them down or threaten to shut them down? Now you'll hear them say over and over again that I'm sure with all this that they're going to say, oh, well, we were doing stuff behind the scenes, right? And all that means is that they were holding hands with management, having negotiations when we were dying by the dozens, right? The numbers do not lie. The MTA has blood on their hands because they didn't do the basics to keep us safe. And our union has blood on its hands too, because Anthony's point was right. I think his analogy is perfect with respect to the captain of the aircraft carrier, right? The captain of the aircraft carrier knows that he's an officer. His first responsibility is the lives of the men and women who serve under him, right? And that's the same for our union officers. Now, a union has a lot of things that it does, but in a crisis like this, its primary responsibility is to protect us and save our lives. And how did they do with that, right? They failed at every opportunity because they didn't stand up for us. I mean, where's the public? People are dying. Where's the public condemnation of the fact that the MTA isn't doing enough? Where's the condemnation of Foy and of Cuomo? Where's the standing up and saying, if these things don't happen, then the service is not going to run? Where's the organizing members saying, listen, we've got your back. You guys go out and do stuff to protect your lives. We have got your back, and this is what you need to do. They did none of that, right? And that's their primary responsibility. And you compare them to the Detroit bus drivers, and you see that they failed. Whatever, and you can see that, as I said, when you look at the Facebook pages, thousands of members are just angry, right? And the fact that, one thing to think about is with respect to coming out and coming out to locations, and checking to see if they had the PPE when they didn't have, the sanitizer or the masks and all that stuff, and saying, again, if you don't get this, if this stuff isn't here, the work isn't going to go. But in the end, we know what happened. We know the problem is that we've seen this union strategy for years has been to cozy up to Cuomo, right? Every contract round, Utano and none of his officers would mention Cuomo's name with respect to Tier 6 attacking us with respect to the contracts. And so we ended up with a bad contract. We end up folding over. Now transit workers are dying. They do it again. Utano folds over, Eric Logel folds over, and members get sick and die, right? And one of the key things is with this video is it's still going on, right? I just returned to work a couple of days ago. I get to Church Avenue, and in the morning, and there's no office train. I tell the dispatcher, because I check the crew room first. There's tons of people in the crew room. And I went to the dispatcher, I said, listen, either we don't have social distancing, it's mandated, it's right here on the wall. There was a memo or something. I said, if you don't find a way to spread out, give people rooms to spread out, you got to shut this terminal down. He got on the phone right away with superintendent. She was actually stationed at Church Avenue. She's been there the last couple of days. I've had some conversations with her. Yarborough, I think her name is, and they got a train out immediately, right? And then today, I felt like the office train. They got another office train there, but then it's interesting. This is interesting. We have two terminals on the G line, one at Church Avenue, that's the main one, but also at Court Square, which we don't use. We just get back on the train and go back south, really. But I went upstairs there for a minute, and they had stickers and tape up on the tables to provide guidelines for social distancing there. Now, RTO doesn't really use that crew room, right? But down at our crew room at Church Avenue, there was nothing. It's just a free-for-all. And so I went in and I said, we need to set up a plan. You need to set up a plan for social distancing in the crew room. And we went back and forth some. And I said, there's no tape. There's tape up at Court Square. There's no tape up there. There's no limit on the number of people. There's no, you got extra chairs in there. And so, I pushed her and she was like, oh, there's no tape there. All right, we'll set something up. And then later that day, they put up placards saying only 10 people in the room at a time. I had pushed just for a limit on people. She initially said no, but I'm sure she talked to someone higher up and then, realized that that's an indefensible position. So, but these are things that shop stewards and people, Danny talked about what he was doing, what they did in buses that took the lead, right? But the fact is that we shouldn't have to do this on our own, and we shouldn't have to be taking the lead on this. That they ran as officers to run the entire union. Right? They're the ones who should be protecting our lives and organizing us to do it. and yet they haven't done it, right? It's a criminal abdication of their responsibility, and transit workers' deaths are on their hands as well.
Yeah.
One last thing, I know I've talked a lot. One last thing I just want to throw in there to get a jab in at the TA, because people watching, there may be people who don't know what it's, a lot of transit workers may be watching, but other people may be watching as well. This is just a little story that I think is important to tell. Like, I've been pushing since mid-March that every time a new crew takes over a train, they should sanitize their position, right? That's the way to help keep us safe. I thought Anthony went into great detail on how, if someone sneezed, then it could get on the stuff, and then every crew afterward could pick it up. So they refused. To them, it's not important to come up with a social distancing plan, even though they've supposed to been doing it for a month. I have to push and push just to get little things done on it. But now I get on at Church Avenue, the trains come out of the relay position, and you have right before you're supposed to get on and leave, your starting lights telling you to go are there when that train comes out. And so that train comes out. Normally, you're supposed to have 2 minutes to do your brake test, check your circuit breakers, all that stuff. But now, right, I'm going to wipe down my position every time. I don't care what they say. They can take me out of service. Every time I'm going to wipe down my position. And so now it's more than 2 minutes because I checked all that other stuff, and I'm wiping down my tools, my buttons, all that stuff, circuit breakers, my master controller. And now the dispatcher's going crazy. Ding, 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 ding. And then calling on the radio. Yeah, train operator, crew, what's going on? Why aren't you leaving? And so they can't care about social distancing. Now they don't have a plan for that. But during a pandemic, if the train leaves 1 or 2 minutes late, now they're going crazy. And that's the transit authority in a nutshell. And I got on the radio. I said, listen, I'm wiping down my position in addition to doing all my checks. We're in a pandemic. I'm going to be safe. And then there's radio silence. No one says anything, right?
Yeah.
But they think they can bully people. They care about, in a pandemic, the train running on time 1 or 2 minutes late, even though the schedule's gone to hell. But they don't care about enough to set up a real social distancing plan for us. Yeah. And there it is in a nutshell.
Okay. I think James wanted to speak. James, is that a hand or no?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I kind of like what Seth was saying about the union, people being pissed off, their response. I don't mean to sound like some really educated person on union politics, how they go around dealing with things behind the scenes and this other stuff. But from my point of view, as someone who's a member that just is out there working, which I think a lot of people are who don't know in depth, like really what's going on, there's also been no communication about actually what is going on, because if there is behind the scenes, we don't know. And there's no one telling us that there is something going on. So we feel like we're left out there just in the wind with no protection, with no voice. And as this has gone on, I think everybody who's out there in the field, in any department, I think you realize that in this scenario, we are more alone than we ever thought we were. Like, our union does not have our back. They do not have our voice in mind. When we asked for masks, they told us we don't have masks. They just reiterated what our bosses said. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was so condemning. It was like, you're not even going to fight for our rights of protection. We were asking for PPE. How many people want more stuff to carry in their bags? We were asking for PPE. It's like, you can't even do that. You're actually, you're combative with the people who elected you into office to represent our needs. If your people are asking you to do something, you should go do that thing that we're asking you to do. If you're not going to do it, then what are you there for? Right, and also, like what Seth was saying about them not doing their jobs. It's, if they can't go to the press and have this kind of momentum with all the sick, with the people who passed away, if they can't do it now, with all the ammunition they have as a union to go forward, when will they ever do it? They're not going to.
Never.
And I think you see it now, like on Facebook, where people, the reason the homeless thing is such a big thing in the news is because we've taken it upon ourselves. People have literally taken all the stuff from from RTO, the buses, everything that's happened that have been bad in the system has now been compiled. And a few people have been putting it all together and blasting Twitter and blasting emails and doing what the union should have been doing this whole time. And I think, that's, it just, like you said, they should be doing it, but now it's gotten to the point where we just know they're not. And people are stepping up and people are starting to say, we
Right.
can't deal with this anymore. We're just going to start doing it ourselves. And it's effective. It's actually working. It's like we don't even need these people anymore. We're doing it on our own. We're protecting our own. We got each other's backs at this point. It's important. It's a very important thing to have, but it just shows you the complete failure that they had in from the MTA cracking down on us to what our line of protection of our union completely obliterated, not even there. And now we're just doing it for ourselves.
I see Danny with his hand up. I got a really important point, but I'm going to let you go anyway. Go ahead.
It goes back to the same thing. We've seen most of our representation from the union, we haven't seen them. I'm fortunate enough that I have Donald Yates on the Map Store one. He's been very active, very keeping us, or at least trying to do his best to let us know what's going on in regards to Map Store 1 division in Manhattan in regards to buses. But it's like all we hear from the reps is there's stuff going on behind the scenes. I honestly wish they could live stream what exactly happens behind the scenes, because I've yet to realize anything that they've accomplished. They're always saying that, oh, we are accomplishing this behind the scenes, that, but we don't see it because our safety is what we're concerned about right now. And they're not out here crying, making a big deal about MTA providing us the mask. We had to do that. We blasted it on social media. Everybody, like James said, everybody took it upon themselves now to just come out. And it doesn't matter what the MTA does or transit comes after us. We took it as, you know what, we're putting everything out there. Let the people know exactly how we feel, what's really going on. Because even as right now, does anybody know if we're considered first responders or essential workers?
Because the MTA can't make up their mind, apparently.
They deemed us first responders to get away from the FMLA for the childcare for most of our single parents who now are stuck not knowing what to do with their kids.
You're a first responder when that status denies you benefits. You're not when it entitles you to any kind of protection. That's TA double speak.
Andy, did you have more? Or
no, that's pretty much it.
Okay. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. And also to get to James's point about, well, when your members want something, why aren't you dedicated to get that thing that they need, right? Well, let's just remember RRTO VP, what he did when members at Continental were tearing him apart over the masks. What did he say? His response was, well, you don't need the mask. Or the CDC says you don't need the masks. And you wouldn't want to take masks away from our doctors and nurses, would you? He accused our members of basically being selfish, that they wanted masks to protect themselves, okay? And we all know that we wouldn't have masks if it wasn't for people like Danny and James and Andrew and myself and countless others constantly stepping forward. But in talking about what's going on behind the scenes, why is it that your union leadership is ripping into union officers who are providing information to our members about IOD, about injury on duty? Does anybody want to tell me how COVID-19 is not an injury on duty? That you were willfully exposed by the MTA's incompetence and inability to protect us? They don't even want their officers telling members how to fill out an IOD for the record only, just in case sometime later they wind up with pulmonary failure or lung disease or God knows what else related to the exposure they've already received. And then when one of our RTO reps went on Facebook and told members to reach out to her, that she would help, that person would help them with filling out the IOD paperwork, the response to your VP was, oh, well, why are you giving the reps more work? Why are you making our job harder? That was his response. And so like when it's beyond even just they're not doing anything to defend us, what they're doing is they're running interference for management. They're running interference for Barry Greenblatt. They're running interference for Charlie Henschke. And you know why? Because Eric already knows that his union career is over and that he couldn't get elected dog catcher in this union. He knows that. And so his plan is to become Superintendent Eric Eddy at some point by feathering his nest with good relationships with management, by doing them favors. And so that's why, like, it's so important for us to remove this cancerous growth on our union in terms of the leaders that are addicted to release time and will do anything to maintain good relationships with the bosses instead of actually doing what they were elected to do, which was to represent members. And their most basic responsibility is to fight for our lives. I see Seth has his hand up, so I'm going to go to Seth on this. Damn it. Sorry.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm really glad that Brady hit on a point that I think needs to be made. I think John was making it as well. I just step away for 1 sec. But it's what we have to understand is that our union leadership now is effectively a branch of management, right? They're doing management. They're working with management hand in hand. It all comes from Cuomo, but they also spend all their time with management, right? And they make deals with management. And so they see themselves like management. And so they have more in common with them than they do with us. And so, so they push management's line, Eric, in Continental, I can't believe he said it, but he's like, there are we don't have masks. So what do you want us to do? And you don't want us to take them away from other people and you don't need them. He sounds exactly like Foy. And it's disturbing, right? And we need people in office who, even if they get into office, will not succumb to that, will not see themselves like management. And it's a big problem. Like when I think about, like, just one thing I want to say, because I talked first about this behind the scenes thing. I want to be clear about that. When they say, oh, you don't know what we're doing behind the scenes, do not believe them, right? We know what their record is. Their record is dozens of transit workers dead, and they didn't do anything to fight in public, to organize us, to go to locations, to stop the transit authority from letting us die, right? Whatever they said behind the scenes is meaningless. It's just an attempt to cover themselves, right? Because we know that they weren't there for us. They didn't come out to the field. They didn't shut down work. And there are other unions that stood up and did that work, right? We have to remember what a basic union can do, and they did not do it. Nothing they say about what could go on behind the scenes excuses them, right, from what they did. Right. It's all irrelevant. And let me just say one more thing, which is that when you look at the union's response, like the information we're getting, like Brady was saying, we weren't getting information from them. That's not true. I got lots of emails from them. There was an email saying that was focused on Kronos, that we didn't have to put our finger on the thing. Then I got an email that said I've got a discount with Enterprise rental car during this crisis, right? And then I got a bunch of emails about dead transit workers. And then I got an email saying that I could go to Costco, right? That's their response, right? Kronos, Enterprise rent-a-car, dead transit workers, Costco, right? Yeah. Those are the fights they chose to publicize about. And that tells you everything you need to know. I can get an Enterprise rental car at a discount while my fellow transit workers are dying. Thank you, Tony Utano.
Yeah. I think it's kind of sweet that, given the hard times that Enterprise Rent-A-Car is having right now, that Tony Utano came to their rescue and was their representative. Because, after all, everybody needs a helping hand. I'm glad that was the one he chose to hand out. But I think James has an important point. Tell us about the member in that video with Eric Eddy at Continental. She got COVID-19, didn't she?
Yes. I know her from we're our line co-workers, but I know that she actually came down with COVID-19 and currently recovering, thank God. But yeah, it's just, she's there in the video, obviously very mad and asking for that simple protection of a mask and gloves or sanitizer. And lo and behold, she actually is infected with coronavirus. So it's just incredible that, you're there. You're arguing for your safety, for your life, and the person who's elected by us to represent that very thought is standing in that video telling her, don't worry about it, you don't need a mask. And lo and behold, that person's sick. So I just don't understand. Yeah. Like it's so hard to fathom, right? Like it's like how do you, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, there is no good word to describe what a miserable waste of life Eric Eddie Logella is. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But I want to try to leave and wrap this up on a high note in terms of morale. The good news is, even though the unions in this country, not just TWU Local 100, but almost every union in this country, are certainly not showering themselves with glory and are certainly not leading any heroic struggles to advocate for working class people, not just their own union members, but for working people as a whole, which is their most basic responsibility to be a self-defense organization of our class. So instead, who is being cast into the spotlight to fight for working class and oppressed people? It's people like Chris Smalls. That you wonder why, Local 100 Fightback has had Chris Smalls on our live streams, why we've been pointing to the rally that he's holding on Friday at 11:30 a.m. The details are on the Local 100 Fightback Coalition page. We've also been pointing to Target workers, potentially leading a sick out on that day, Instacart workers, Whole Foods. All across this country, all across the world, working class people are standing up, and many of them don't have the benefit of union protection. They don't have any reasonable expectation that they won't be fired, that their entire career won't be evaporated if they go up against the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos. And they are not allowing that to cow them at all. So we need to model our kind of survival tactic, our political perspective on that, on fearless representation of the interest of our class. I don't care how you pay for it. I don't care if you got a crisis. I have a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And what it says in the Constitution, well, we're going to goddamn well get it, or you're not going to get what you want. That's how this has to work. There has to be a struggle, a class struggle between our class interest and their class interest. Otherwise, one class is going to be dead and the other one is going to be stepping over our bodies to go to their bank accounts so they can live a life of luxury at our expense. That's what I had to say, but I expect many people will want to wrap up. Danny, you want to talk for a minute?
Pretty much. Pretty much good. I just wanted to thank you guys for inviting me. This was definitely a first for me, and I hope in the future we could do more. Absolutely. In regards to the one thing that this has shown us is that we can depend on the union. We are the union, and I've heard that a lot when I started here. A lot of people told me we are the union. The members are the union. Everybody needs to come together, needs to step up, and this was a good time for that, because what it's shown us is we have to take the lead. We depend on the union delegates to get their title, but if we see that they're not doing anything, we have to say, forget about, we're gonna do what we need for our safety and what we want, until they hear us and they give us what we want.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Danny. It was a great honor to have you with us, and our doors open anytime you're interested, anytime you got time. Also encourage other members from buses. Come tell us what it's like. Actually, we Roberto was going to join us, and we apologize for the last minute notice, but his son had a car incident and he had to deal with, and things come up. Everybody knows people have emergency situations, but we're going to be having Roberto on soon, and Michael Enriquez was also unable to join us, but he will be shortly. James, you want to get a chance to wrap up here? Sorry, I just muted you. Go ahead.
Sam, I appreciate the opportunity to come on to talk about, life under the MTA. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody here for their work, other people who are stepping up and doing it. I see it throughout the last 2 months. Initially, people were waiting for the MTA either to say, hey, we're going to do these measures or shut down. And then when they didn't, people were waiting for some kind of response from the union. And once everything sort of broke down, you start seeing people rising up, protecting each other, helping each other, whether it's with ideas like Danny had with the bus to, close off the front section, or if it's just people blasting Twitter pages and then doing the diligence of just collecting all the data and, just all these things in between, and you guys having these forums and stuff like that. I think you're seeing a lot of people who are just your average workers and not elected officials or anything, like starting to realize that we need to do this and come together and really take control of the situation, and we'll start dictating what happens here. And we can't, as Seth put it, the union almost feels like we're dealing with more managers. So now we have to go in a direction where we're going to start telling them, hey, we don't need this anymore. We're going to start going in our direction, and whether you like it or not, this is the direction we're going. So you better either conform or get out of the way, you know. And I think that's a very good thing. And if that's one good thing that comes out of this, is maybe we come out of here with a stronger workforce, and that in the end will probably make this union stronger at the end. But again, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Danny. And just like a train operator will want to take charge of the train. So, Andrew, I want to give you a chance to speak. Sorry, I just muted you again. I'm sorry, I keep messing that up. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. I don't have a whole lot to say. I think that the leadership of our union has failed us. It's failed the wider labor movement. And if that wasn't clear before, it's very, very clear now. And people are starting to notice in larger numbers that we can't be complacent. You can't just check the box at the top of the ballot and send it in, or not send it in at all. And, you know, a union is a democratic organization, and there are structural issues with our union democracy, but we're going to have to assert ourselves on our union leadership because they've made it clear where their priorities lie.
Yeah.
And also, thanks everyone for coming. And
thank you.
This has been nice. Have a good night.
Yeah. Yeah, Seth, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, take a look at the big picture, right? We have to remember that we're fighting for PPE and safety and for our lives now, but we're going to see economic collapse out of this like we've never seen before, right? It's going to make the Great Recession look like a blip. And we've already seen the starting, you know, the firing shots. The Daily News called for a public worker wage freeze, right? And there was also talk about holding off on the raises for some public workers, right? And that's only the beginning. That's the tip of the iceberg, right? Once we get through the worst of this pandemic and there's 15 or 20 million unemployed people, then they're going to, you know, I have no doubt that Cuomo and the MTA and other organizations, they're going to try and reopen the contracts and get concessions from us because they're going to try and make the states pay. They have huge deficits. And so we have to be preparing now for that fight. And these kind of conversations we're having, recognizing the lack of leadership in our union, the lack of fight in our union, and what we can do about it are ways to take a step forward. And John mentioned May Day on Friday as a big day. And it's really important because we have this big fight on our hands and we're fighting for our lives right now. So it's very vital that we get organized as quickly as possible. And that's why Local 100 Fightback has taken the lead among transit workers at building networks with other workers. We've had nurses on the show, right? We've had Chris Smalls on, we've had transit workers from Chicago on, and building solidarity like that and putting up a united front against Cuomo and the bosses and Amazon and the MTA, realizing we're all in the same boat, right? And that's why it's so important. And we've been pushing to get transit workers out to the event on Staten Island on Friday at 11:30. When's the thing at Cuomo's office?
It's still kind of up in the air because there's a car caravan going from Staten Island to 3rd Avenue where Cuomo's office in Manhattan is. I would guess 2 o'clock, 2:30, something like that.
Right.
And then there's also a plan to go to Jeff Bezos's new crib on Central Park. So that's going to be fun too.
Right.
We'll give him a rude welcome to New York. So all the details we have are kind of in flux because people have to travel from location to location.
Right. But I just want to point out how important it is because transit workers have a lot of credit right now because we've been through the worst of it, right? We've died in record numbers. And so if transit workers can come out in numbers to support the Amazon workers, to support the nurses together, that can start to build up a coalition of essential workers who all are experiencing the same conditions. And if we build that up, then we can take joint action together to protect each other. That's what unions and working class solidarity is all about. So anyone, please email us, or you can contact our Facebook page. You can send us a message, or John or I individually, or Local 100 Fightback at gmail.com. If you want to get involved on Friday, if you can go to any of these events at Staten Island or Cuomo's office or Jeff Bezos's luxury pad, right? I urge everyone, please get in touch with us, figure out how to get involved, because we have to draw a line in the sand and start standing up.
Okay, just to wrap, the address for the Amazon worker protest, I'm not sure whether you guys can see this. It's 546 Gulf Avenue, Staten Island, New York, 10314. You can take the Staten Island ferry and then take the S40 bus will get you out there. It's at 11:30 a.m. If transit workers are coming, please come in uniform. It'd be nice to show a united front in uniform. The nurses are going to be there in their scrubs. If you could bring your train operator or bus operator shirt, that's more than enough to show solidarity. And you will get to speak if you come in uniform, you know, intent. You want to be heard. Here's a good opportunity to be heard. Come and make your voices heard. Chris Smalls has grabbed the microphone, not for himself, for everybody. And we need to use that microphone. So, you know, you want to talk about homelessness in the subways, you want to talk about unsafe conditions, you want to talk about the disrespect we're treated with, you want to send a message to Cuomo, come with us. Okay, all the information is on the Local 100 Fightback page. Thank you so much to everybody who came out and everybody who watched the stream. And we'll look forward to talking to you real soon.
John, just quickly, Danny wanted to make one clarification before he left.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just want to make sure, and Bus is with us. I want to give a special thank you to Michael Enriquez, because he's been a big part on making sure the personnel and buses and even other departments are well informed about contract stuff that pertains to them, so they can better protect themselves if they want to stay out of work, if they want to protect themselves and, you know what, say I'm going to block off the bus or I'm going to call out sick, that they know what the rules are, what our contract protects them and enforces them to say, you know what, I'm covered, I can stay out of work. So I just want to make sure, because he was a big part of starting the blocking off this front seat and getting the chains involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like I kind of like think that I know a lot about the contract. There's always stuff that I learned from Michael Enriquez, and I don't know how he does it. How old is he? I mean, he looks like a baby face. I don't know how he gets all this information.
He is young. He is young, and he is very smart. He's very knowledgeable. He's able to keep a lot of information. Yeah. I don't know how he does it, but I'm thankful that I met him, and that he pretty much is willing to help us and guide all the transit workers and members, TWU members, into a new direction of just getting back to the way it used to be, of standing up for what we believe is right.
Absolutely. And, you know, we think this is a really important step forward for buses and RTO and MOW and hopefully many more departments to be in the house together talking about these issues. It's a really big step forward. And thank you so much for everybody for joining us. We'll have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.
Hey, everyone.
Have a good night.
Have a great night.
Thanks.